transmission. It is November 6, 2025, 22:30 hours. Is anybody out there? This is the Blue Iron Lion broadcasting again from somewhere. Now, today's topic is change, and why am I even still on here, right? I guess I look at this as some sort of a family heirloom, right? Maybe something to be remembered by one day, and perhaps it'll be of some value for someone out there, if not just entertainment. I might have said this all already, but that's okay. Change. We are changing until the end. I was driving the other day and remembered that about 2 weeks ago, I thought to myself, I haven't broadcasted anything for a while. And then a topic just popped up into my head, right? And this was based on an article about change, about the bitter, hard truth for retirees in prestigious or noble fields. It talked about people leaving their careers with honor, particularly law enforcement, which was my world for about a number of years. I'm glad I did it. Would I do it again? Yeah, back then and a little wiser, but I wouldn't enter the field now. How about that? Because I just do not have it in me now. Change. Anyway, the article goes on to talk about how even the best, most accomplished people in their field, like those that were so good they could have had their own TV show, like after about 45 days of retiring and walking out that door, they're forgotten. Or that's when the countdown to disappearing into obscurity, at least as far as the old profession is concerned, begins, right? Like everything moves on, right? It's nobody's fault. And then all those accolades and accomplishments reduced to memories, maybe a plaque or two, and some personal satisfaction. Sure, some lifelong connections might remain with old colleagues, which is good. But that's it. Thanks for your service. And speaking of law enforcement, what makes it so unique is the camaraderie, save for a portion of the personality disorders I've had the displeasure of working with. Still, though, there's a culture. And I've seen that change, this culture change over the years, some for better, some maybe worse. You immerse yourself in that life for decades and then it's over. Your sense of being, if it's tied to that, disappears. Maybe that's why some guys stay 30 to 40 years. They don't want to let that go. Which I always found odd, considering all the unfamiliar changes I've seen over the years. I actually started about 22 years ago. And it's a whole different world now. Someone who's been on since I was in grade school, however, you think it'd be too different for them. But anyway, I didn't start this to talk about my old job. I want to talk about change. Yep, change, right? We go from young to old. Beliefs change, circumstances change, your family dynamics change, and on and on. For me, it seemed like, I remember as a kid, it seemed like every 7 years there was a major shift. Life would change, you'd adjust, and then it would change again. Teen years, maybe you miss what it was like to be in elementary school or elementary age. Early 20s, things change again. You miss your teens, perhaps. Family members move on, friendships fade. That homie who used to be your ace, your hangout buddy at all the happenings. You fall out, or one of you move out of town. Nobody's fault, just life. And the older you get, the more your mind gets used to the inevitability of these changes. Thinking back to my 20s or 30s, if I were forced to relive that with the mind I have now, it would be torture, right? In my 20s, I loved to party and go to clubs in Brooklyn, meet up with the bros, hit events. Brooklyn, looking forward to Labor Day, Juve nights, all that. Family, friends, there was always something going on. Now, none of that is bad, by the way, But with the exception of family events, I just don't share the same excitement by far. Sure, if I'm in town, I'll check out the Labor Day parade if I'm up to it. But yeah, all that died down for me over time. And the elders that held these events, they aged out. Clubs, parties, you couldn't pay me to go now unless it's during a vacation somewhere. Who knows, maybe given another 20 years, I would revert back to that. Right? But for now, yeah, I'll just stick to family events, birthdays, holidays, that sort of thing. More enjoyable. Right? Now, I used to be girl crazy, right? The young me, with the second head thinking more than the first. Right? Now older, not so much. Of course, there's always attraction to women, but it's not a priority like it used to be. Plus, you read all these horror stories of young guys with money getting backdoored by dark-hearted sweethearts, or even their own so-called friends and or associates. And I think, well, I'd like to think that if I had it like that back then, I wouldn't have allowed myself to fall victim. But yeah, the joys of being young. Side note on being a young guy, though, and attraction. Looking around now, it would seem as though young men either are more mature or more informed due to social media about the whole man-woman dynamic presently. Women don't seem to be the priority anymore amongst young men. At first I thought it might have just been lower testosterone levels due to all the xenoestrogens that the millennials and Gen Z were exposed to, but now I see it's a whole movement. Maybe on both sides. I don't know. Well, if that's the case, I can understand it. Society changes what's acceptable. Like shows like Married with Children ran 11 years back then. Today, a show couldn't even exist. Things once cool are now weird, right? Like way back, I was more on the quieter, shyer side when I was a kid, adolescent. Then coming up, I had to adapt and be more expressive. Now there's a whole generation of quiet people who don't really communicate. So if you're outspoken, suddenly you're weird. It keeps changing, right? Strength training used to dominate my life. Always chasing the strongest lift. I'd watch powerlifting videos, telling myself that even in my 60s and 70s, if I lived that long, I'd still be heroically strong for my age. Now, lifting is about maintenance, about staying alive for the fight. Almost 30 years of lifting, and it's changed from passion to sustaining, maintaining. Maybe I'll get that back. Right? Back then, I wanted to be rich, like most, and I still definitely wouldn't mind it, but if I had been rich when I was younger, aside from what I already mentioned earlier about relationships, I wouldn't have discovered what's truly more important. The esoteric truths, the bigger picture. Those lessons shaped my trajectory to something greater, beyond all this. Of course, I still want to complete the Monopoly game of this construct. I do not intend to finish destitute here. I'll leave something behind for those I care. Show family a good time. From anywhere. I was on a rhyme kick. But no, if you offered me $1 trillion for all this knowledge I've gained recently, I wouldn't take it. God's honest truth. Does that make me crazy? Now you got to know what I know. Now you know what you know. But if you could see it how I see it, anyway, I don't want to go off on a tangent. Yeah, but back to reality, right? Yeah, on man-woman relationships, especially those that were once romantic, my views have changed enough times, right? I went from being a gentleman to believing in that line from the All in the Family theme song, girls were girls and men were men, meaning we absolutely cannot be friends. To, well, the verdict's still out. Like, friendships with women do exist. Not the let's go shoe shopping type friendships, right? We're not doing that. But platonic friendships just due to long-term connections. Yeah, when a person can hold a place in your heart where none of the titles matter, right? Like the world's changing to both of you and you can't rock with it. You both can't rock with it because you're both coming from the same era where things used to make sense. Kind of friendship, maybe love without the complications. Here, look, all this change isn't meant to depress. It's about adapting. We're here in this realm to learn something, right? I, for one, believe learning soul sovereignty is vital, right? And also, besides that, like while I'm here, there are just things I just can't tolerate mediocrity in terms of earning for myself. No, let me change that because I'm still fighting my way out of mediocrity like most all else. Restated, I won't tolerate accepting mediocrity, meaning I'm going to always try the unorthodox until I get it right, living-wise, right? One life. What's the alternative, right? This isn't the 80s. It's not even the 90s. I see where this is headed, right? Engineered inflation, regulations to keep the poor poorer, not enough Social Security, nothing to leave your kids but pennies on the dollar in comparison, maybe life insurance if you could stay up on top of it, AI making degrees even more obsolete. I mean, better to have one than not, a degree, man, especially in a specialized field, but still. The system itself is changing, and I think I should have been doing more. But I admit I was naive. I got caught in the cookie cutter thinking, save in the bank, put away, but it's never enough. Anyway, life is a constant change, and adapting to it, learning from it, and leaving something meaningful behind, that's my unwavering point in it. Decide what's yours. For anyone out there that cares to listen. End transmission.